Okay, thank you very much, Carsten, for your warm introduction and your very inspiring webinar. I heard the last minutes, and hello to all there outside in the World Wide Web. So I will speak a little about freeing up time for strategic thinking by doing the strategic planning process in a mostly digitized way with a software solution we designed and developed a few years ago, called SOLYP 3. So my name is Alexander Zimmermann, as Carsten said, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of SOLYP. And now we step into my webinar. So let me start with a briefly overview where our experience is coming from. And it's coming from a lot of different industries we worked in the years ago, and even it's coming from the different size of the enterprises we are working with. For example, from very small and medium-sized enterprises up to very large organizations like BASF or Siemens, and you see at this moment a cluster of mostly chemical and consumer and retail based business models. So, but at the end of the day, strategic planning is really non-industry specific, and it's really non-size specific. So most of the topics or the planning issues, I think around about 70 or 80% in these planning processes of these planning issues are very, very similar. And that's the reason why we are developing a tool, because tools are always very helpful if the underlying topics are similar to each other. So that's not that's a really interesting thinking about these similar planning issues. So if we take a look in what we are seeing at these strategic planning processes, so how does the strategic planning process look really in practice? It's as you see, something which are which are involved a lot of people and a lot of different people. As we look at the employees or at the management, all these stakeholders around these enterprises, and all these people have to be aligned in these planning processes. And it's not so easy to do that, because strategic planning is, up to now, it's very complicated and it's time consuming. So if you are looking at some kind of bigger strategic planning processes, sometimes it's up to more than 30,000 PowerPoint slides which are circling around in these companies, and it's a high challenge of coordination to bring that PowerPoints down to earth, to find the right data in it and to develop the right decisions from these data. And there is still, and this is very interesting, is still there a minimal technical support. So mostly we are talking about all these Microsoft Office products like PowerPoint or Excel or even like Microsoft Word, but there is still no software solution which is structuring and digitizing these strategic planning processes. And that's the reason why it's so much time consuming, and it ends up in an assumption that all of these strategic planning has to do with inspiration, but I feel it's around the other way. So you have to think about doing a lot of strategic analysis. This is what we call the mechanic way of strategic planning. This is looking at your markets, looking at your competitive environment, making some trend analyzing your strengths and weaknesses, your opportunities and threats, and so deriving some goals and measures from it. So from my point of view, it's more than 90% doing the mechanic way in the strategic planning, to have all these data there. But it's also important, even if it's only 5% or up to 5% inspiration in that process, it's the same way to think about being inspired in this process and to have the right ideas to think about the future. And from my point of view, it's important to do that on the right data you find if you're doing these analyzing things. So it's mostly both things are the same weight in these planning processes. So if we take a look how SOLYP 3 support these process, how does SOLYP 3 support this process, then we are having 4 elements in our method. So the benefit of you are generating with our method is to have some kind of intelligent strategic planning, and the first part of our method is to do all these data collection not with PowerPoint and Excel, but to do that through so-called digital questionnaires. So it's something we developed with our customers together. I think we have around about 800 of these digital questionnaires, and all these digital questionnaires are covering special themes or topics in a strategic planning process, like the analyzing of the competitive environment, for example. So we have, by using these digital questionnaires, a structured collection of all these strategic data, and we are of course able to customize these digital questionnaires according to the customer-specific strategic planning processes. And at the end of the day, if you are using the structured way of collection, you have a very, very high quality of strategic data, and this is simply making your process more accurate. This is one of the biggest benefits, and it makes all your probably different businesses in your company, it makes them comparable, which is very important, even if the businesses are different to each other. So you have the possibility to compare it in a strategic way, and you are gaining a high comprehensiveness with that. So this is the first part of our method, and it ends up in a structured web-based collection and of course storage of strategic data. So it ends up in storage in a database. You are able to use these database the next year or the following years to get this information back again. And the second part of the method is of course not only to think about so-called key figures or hard facts, but the use of the soft data. So what we are calling soft data is everything which cannot only be described in one or more key figures. So this makes it a very comprehensiveness of your strategic data, and you can link these soft data to your hard financial data in order to minimize or manage the inconsistencies through so-called plausibility check, which means nothing else but increasing sales figures have to be linked to market environment, which seems to be plausible to increase really your sales. You can check this during or after your process, even if you are generating some kind of decision paper for the board, for example, so you have a better understanding of your future and of the development of your strategic planning process. So in a nutshell, it's the collection of both, of hard financial data, of course, but also of the so-called soft data. The next step is about, I think we heard that from Alexander Fink at the beginning of our webinar, it's about the holistic way of planning, so to cover all these topics in a strategic planning process, and there should not be any media disruption between the different strategic planning phases, so that we are able to map the entire strategic planning process, and there is no information loss anymore. So it ends not at the strategic analysis, for example. So you are able to cover the whole process in your company. So it's about no information loss. One of the last parts in our method is the ability to have some intelligent data analysis with a special topic, what we called business portfolio or strategic business portfolio, which gives you the opportunity to compare the strategic data of all your businesses in your strategic planning process, and to make it the decision easier where to invest your money to bring some kind of businesses forward. So you have some predefined presentations. Of course, for example, we are generating PowerPoint out of our software solution at a push of a button, but you even can drill down and take a look at one or more key figures which were given you by a special business unit, for example, in a special reason. So you can really drill down the system, but you can also produce all your stuff you need to visualize the strategic data. So that's the thing we are doing in our method. So it's a very interesting thing to think about, analyzing by a mouse click the strategic core data and to have the automated generation of presentations, of course. So on the next slide, it's about how does it work in practice. So how does it SOLYP 3 look like, and we have some kind of cable designed for that. And you're seeing on the left side of this cable all these planning units in your company which are allowed to use these tools for strategic planning. These planning units can be very, very different. So some are using customers as a strategic planning unit. Some are using regions or product groups. Of course, businesses or divisions, business units. So that's on the left side. And every one of these planning, every of these planning units is using the SOLYP 3 digital questionnaires to put the data into the system, hard data and soft data, of course, and all these data are ending up in a storage in a database you're seeing at the middle of the sheet, so which is very well structured. And out of these database and these storage, you can generate all these PowerPoint stuff you need and all this Excel stuff maybe, or you are getting even one or more key figures out of the system. So this is very simple how SOLYP 3 works. So using questionnaires, storing in a database, bringing all this soft data into the database and producing all this information stuff you need during your process. So just an example what soft data means. So-called soft data is all data which cannot be expressed as key figures. So this is an example of a questionnaire for qualitative information. As you see, it's not about key figures. There's a lot of text in it. You have some comments, you have scorings for today and for the futures. You have some information about the planning unit you are using. You have on the left side all your success factors in a list. You can choose one of them and give the right scoring to it. And you have some attachments and sources, who is the author, internal comments. So it's not about thinking about key figures. It's a lot about text and unstructured information we are bringing together. And on a click on a mouse click, we are generating just a simple chart. For example, it's out of one of our existing processes. All these success factors from me and my competitors, just as a small curve to see it in a kind of overview where you're standing in your competitive environment and what are your success factors and the success factors of your competitors. Let's just take a look in another example. So it's a little bit more structured about knowing your targets, responsibility, and of course the progress status of your target fulfillment. This is an essential prerequisite to effect a target-oriented control. Some steps later in the process, if you have done the analysis, you can think about doing the stuff with regard to your target. So I think there are just one key figure, and this is the resources about or the status, and the rest of it is also some kind of soft data as the description of the action item of the strategy, the description, the prioritization, and again attachment. So a well-structured questionnaire again for so-called soft data. So what we are generating out of it, or what our customers are generating out of it, for example, just a quick overview one of the strategic targets. It's called highest level of customer satisfaction, and all these data we have structured in our software is visualized on a PowerPoint slide, and it's as on a click of a button. So it's a possible output for that kind of qualitative information. So of course, not everything is about soft data in the strategic planning process. We need some, I think it's between 15 and 40 key figures in strategic planning processes. Every process is about the prognosis of sales or of other shares there, as you see, sales in Europe or sales in America. So we are dividing up the sales in our strategic planning processes, and this is an example for really existing quantitative information also. So what we are doing after that collection of structured data, we try to bring that information on slides, as I have shown you before, here again, and to make some assumptions if these key figures are really aligned with the environment, with the soft data. And what you are seeing on the left side here is the relationship between the profit and the market environment. And what we are seeing is that with respect to today, somebody is thinking about his profit and his market environment, but in the future there should be a big step ahead for the profit, but the underlying market environment is not aligned to that. So it's something worth to discuss in this process, because it's not very consistent if you're looking at this what we call hockey stick effect. So this is something we are generating out of the system. There could be a mismatch between the profit prognosis and the existing market environment. And on the right side, you are seeing some kind of portfolio management. So this is the relationship between profit and the actual market position. So what we see here is that only the first or the second on the market position is really generating an interesting profit. So if somebody is there on the market position equal to 3 or better than 3 or lower than 3, so it's not very it's not the right way to think about generating a lot profit, because nobody is doing that in these portfolios. So if somebody is asking for investments, for example, to come to a better market position, it's interesting thinking about which position it should be. So it's only worth thinking about doing investment if he's the first or the second one in the market. So connect your soft data, as we see, with your hard key figures, and reveal inconsistencies within your strategic planning. So I come up to my end with that. So this is a really short introduction into SOLYP 3 and the way of doing strategic planning, not only with key figures. This is one of the most important things I want to tell you in this webinar. And now I'm looking very forward to hearing something about culture from Danny. Thank you, Carsten, for inviting me.